Have you ever assembled something and at the other end of it had a little parts bag or box full of bolts, parts and pieces that didn't get installed? You know that feeling, right? This has given me no peace. So we put together the Hearthstone wood stove. This is the Green Mountain 80. You guys are asking about that. And Jack and I scratched our heads because it's all lined with, you know, it's a catalytic stove, and it's got a reburn chamber and all this stuff. It took us 3 hours just to figure out how to put the soapstone in it. And when everything was said and done, we were left with a square rectangle piece of vermiculite and a stainless steel baffle that we could not figure out how to put it in. But as professional homeowners, we don't let that stop us, and we march forward, and we had a nice fire anyway. But now I know where they go, so we're going to tear this apart. I'll show you where these things go, why they're in there, and we'll see where that takes us. So let's get inside the firebox. Before we get into the firebox, let's talk a little bit about my folly. Now, as you guys know, I've always made the commitment to you guys on this channel from the very beginning to show the good and the bad. Hair and warts and all, right? If something doesn't work out or it's a total fail, I've always shared that with you, even to my own humiliation and embarrassment, because it's important. There's nothing worse than trying to learn something and watching someone who is a master at it do everything perfectly and flawlessly, and then when you jump in and try to do it yourself, you have all sorts of problems that were probably cut out of the original edit, right? So I think that's important to me, is to be honest and straightforward as possible. Now, I wouldn't recommend cutting a hole in your roof in the middle of winter. Now, it was snowing and raining when we cut the hole in the roof, but again, as a professional homeowner, we're all about getting stuff done. We're not all about thinking about consequences, right? So I figured, yes, it's going to drip on the stove for a couple days, but beings were on the dry side of the Cascades, and it really doesn't rain that much here. It shouldn't be a problem. I'll get up there and get that flashing on there, because I can't put the flashing and the adhesive on there when the roof is wet, right? It has literally rained nonstop since I cut that hole in the roof, and I'm out here constantly with a shop vac cleaning up water that's ruining everything. I'll take you in and show you, and then we'll get into the stove. Pray that it stops snowing or raining for just a day or two so we can get up on that roof and get that flashing done. This has been my reality for the last week. Stupid. Dripping on my stove, getting all over. It's okay when the stove is burning because it just evaporates, you know, and steams off here. But when the stove goes out at night, then it drips all over the floor and rust in the top of my stove and everything. So we'll get that flashing done, and I need to repaint this anyway because the stove pipes are all scuffed. So that's not a big deal, but it's just an annoyance. I'll tell you what, guys, I really do appreciate the breadth and depth of knowledge from you guys, my subscribers. I don't know how many of you guys told me where this stuff goes and how to do it in the comment section, because so many of you are installers. That's still a little bit warm. I'm going to grab some gloves. That water dripping on my stove is going to be the death of me. Okay, so what we have here is we have these new stoves are complicated. They've got, because of our friends at the EPA, the wood stoves are under attack and have been for some time. And, the argument is, the false argument from the EPA and environmentally minded folks, or pseudo-environmentally minded folks, is that wood smoke is destroying the planet, when that couldn't be further from the truth. And so they continue to press and to make the stove manufacturers, makes their life more difficult and makes stoves complicated to the point where many of them don't work all that well, right? Or get plugged up and such, rather than just having a proper wood stove like we used to have. I think the reason behind it is not environmental. I think the reason behind it these are the vermiculite baffles. We'll talk about vermiculite here. I think the reason behind it is I think there's a push to get people anything that the government can do, or whoever it is that's pulling the strings, anything that they can do to take away our independence and our reliance upon them is under attack. Because if you are hooked up to the power grid, and that's where how you heat your home, or if you're hooked up to a gas line, that's how you heat your home. If someone decides that you shouldn't have heat anymore, or wants to punish you, because you're not towing the line or who knows what, they can simply just turn it off, right? And then you have no heat, and if you live in a cold environment, that's catastrophic, right? The wood stove's independence. The wood stove is independent from the power company, from the oil oligarchs, from the gas companies, from the massive bloated utilities, right? If you want to heat your house, that's up to you. You reap what you sow, right? You go out in the spring or the fall and you cut your firewood and you stack it up, and no one controls that. No one taxes it. No one gets anything off of it. No one benefits it. You receive 100% of the benefits of your labor. And that is not what the power structure wants. They want us to be dependent upon them. So that's the reason why there's an attack on wood stoves. The environmental argument, I think, is just, I think it's just bogus. Okay, so what we have here is we've got a catalytic converter stove. It has a reburn option, and so it does burn very clean. And these tubes right here are some sort of a reburner. So what you guys told me was that this piece of vermiculite's really interesting stuff. So vermiculite is kind of replaced asbestos. You've heard of asbestos and how toxic it is. My granddad told me back in the day when he started as a mechanic, of course, you know, like most guys do, you start doing easy stuff with brakes, you know, doing brakes. Well, the old brake pads and clutch linings were all made out of that asbestos. It's really handles heat well. Well, they found out, or maybe they knew all along, who knows, that it was killing folks and guys were getting sick from it. Granddad said that those old asbestos brakes, they would come in, he would take the air compressor and blow all that dust, and it was just floating in the air, you know. By God's grace, he made it into his 80s, right? But it's been replaced with vermiculite, which really stands up well against heat. Vermiculite's used in construction, insulation, all sorts of different things. They even use it in paint. So we have two soapstone big old pieces here. I'm going to pull one of these out. And we're supposed to put this vermiculite, which is an insulator, right there on the back side, I think, if you guys explained it to me right. It doesn't feel like it's sitting in there properly. Oh, I already broke it. You know what, I like this stove, and I like Hearthstone, but kind of, you know what it kind of feels like, all this stuff in here? It feels like add-ons. It feels like oh, well, to make it pass inspection or whatever criteria the government's and so we got to start adding all this stuff and essentially turning it into a worse wood stove than if it was just an old school, like an old Fisher, right? Something, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but it sure seems a little over excessive to me. How about we just burn dry firewood and we don't have to worry about smoke coming out. All right, so we'll put that back there. Oh, this guy here, I forgot to tell you, this guy here. So this baffle, so there's holes drilled in this, right? And this guy here is a heat shield. It goes like that, right there. So I noticed that when I turn that lever over there that turns the bypass off and that catalytic converter comes on when the stove's hot, that this all is re-burning. So that smoke, when you see smoke coming out of the chimney that's white, that's unburned fuel, right? So an efficient stove has a reburner. So once you get past all of this nonsense and all that, it actually does work really well. But sometimes I just wonder, is it really all that necessary? Okay, that stainless steel is installed now. Now this is the Vermiculite Baffle, and that fits together like this. Now these I think they're intended to be replaceable because they get beat up. And when you overstuff your stove, you know, you feel it hitting the top, that's just chewing this up, you know, and this is kind of a consumable over time, I guess that. I did have to replace the one on my other Hearthstone, but it lasted about 10 years or so. It is hokey. I'm not impressed with this. This stainless steel piece here, now this lap joint here is kind of hanging out in the middle of nowhere, then they devised this silly thing to fit on there to kind of keep that, to give it some rigidity. You know, what happens is you pull your poker out, or, you know, sometimes you put a piece in that's too big, it won't fit, you pull it out, it hits the thing, the baffles fall down. It's not great. but it does heat well. All right, now let's address all of the concerns and cares about this being too close to the wall. Now, regarding the setback, if I read another comment about the wood stove being too close to a combustible wall and it's going to burn the shop down, I'm going to set you back. New stoves, you can put them a lot closer than the old ones, and they're all rated from the manufacturer. This stove has a heat shield included in the back that looks something like this. There is an airspace between the back of the stove and this supplied heat shield. This is a heat shield that goes on the bottom. Now, air is a really poor transfer of heat. Just imagine, and it's a good thing that it is, because if it was a good transfer, if it transferred heat well, whenever you had your hot coffee or your hot soup, all that heat would just immediately run out of that into the air. But it does not, heat does not travel well over the air. So having a dead airspace with insulation or trying to prevent heat off of a wall is excellent. So there is that. The setback on this stove is 8 inches. 8 inches, and that is what the engineers and everyone has come up, 8 inches from any consumable. And this is a consumable. So what do I have? I have 8 1/4 inches. That meets code. That is, it's not a problem. Even with the fire burning for 12 hours, you can come to the back here and you can put your hand on the fur and it is warm, but it is not touch. It's not hot to the touch. It's nowhere near catching on fire. This is not the old school stoves. Yeah, back in the day, you'd have to, if you had a big old cast iron burner like a Fisher, that thing would have to be a couple feet off the wall. That's why you often saw them in the middle of rooms, right? Because of that setback. Now, the pipe, we have 2 types of pipe here, right? So this is the interior pipe. This is a double-walled pipe that has a stainless steel on the inside. And I don't know if the black is stainless. That looks like it's galvanized or something. This is 6 inches. So you can 6 inches from any combustible material. So what do we have here on this one? I mean, it's almost a foot, right? Yeah. So we are 11, 12 inches. So that's not a problem. And then we have, this is a galvanized piece, but I have the stainless steel up there. This is 2 inches from consumables, and we're going straight up into a steel roof, no problem. So we're good. It's not a problem. Well, the inspector will be out, and he'll look at the stove, and he'll look at from the manufacturer's cut sheets and all that, and see what the setbacks are, and we're good. So it's not a problem, not a concern. So please stop saying that. All right, next video, I went a little bit long here. I'm going to show you a way to start a fire at a wood stove that's going to change your life, and I can't believe I didn't know about it until recently, and leave it up to the Scandinavians to figure out a better way to start a wood stove. We're going to do that together. We'll set it up here, and it will change your life. It'll give you an hour that you won't have to worry about coming back and feeding the kindling. I don't know why we start our fires upside down as Americans when the folks that have been having wood stoves for so long do just the opposite. So we will do that in its own video. So thanks for watching. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. Pray that the rain will stop so I can get up there and flash this roof and stop the drip. That's it. We'll see you guys on the next video.